Democracy in America from 1814 to 1840. During the age of Jackson, 1828 to 1837, more regular people got involved in politics and the government became more democratic. Political participation during this year saw more white men getting the right to vote, the rise of political parties, more involvement through newspapers, and new social movements. However, this period also showed the flaws of democracy that didn't include everyone. Andrew Jackson was was in the early 1800s for several reasons that clicked with Americans. He went from being born in a log cabin in South Carolina to becoming president, which showed the American dream. His life as a self-made man appealed to people who valued hard work and individualism. During 1820, during the 1820s and 1830s, America was changing a lot with Western expansion and more common people getting into politics. Jackson fit right into this age of the common man. He was very easy to relate to and spoke directly. Unlike many other politicians, Jackson also pushed for more democracy, believing in the power of regular people to make decisions, which many Americans liked since they felt ignored by the political elites. Women and black individuals were historically excluded from the political democracy due to a mix of social, economic, and systematic reasons that reinforced inequality. In the early days of democracy, especially in the U.S., the ideals of liberty and equality were not applied equally. Applied equally. Cultural norms, laws, and the economy mostly favored white men. Economic progress mainly helped those already in power, keeping the cycle of exclusion going. This wasn't just because of the market revolution, but also due to the broader societal attitudes and institution that prioritized certain groups over others.
1815 to 1840. In the 1800s, you had to own property to vote because people thought that only landowners had a real stake in the community and could make a good decision. They believed only land showed you were stable and responsible, but by the 1840s, things changed and owning properties wasn't needed to vote anymore. The nullification crisis in the early 1830s showed a growing tension between the North and the South in the U.S. It started because of a disagreement over tariffs, especially the tariff of 1820, which the southern states thought hurt their economy. The crisis began when South Carolina, led by John C., said the tariff was unconstitutional and tried to cancel it in their state. This act showed a big disagreement over the North and the South about power of federal government versus the state. In the 1830s, Native American communities were forced to move because of policies like Indian Removal Act of 1830. This was a big and often tragic change for them as they were pushed from their lands in the southern U.S. to areas west of the Mississippi River, mainly in what is now Oklahoma. One immediate result was losing their land, which was deeply connected to their identity, culture, and spirituality. The forced move, known as Trials of Tears of Cherokee Nation, caused a lot of trauma and suffering, with thousands dying from disease, starvation, and exhaustion during the journey.
Tribes like the Cherokee went to court to fight removal policies, especially in the important Worcester versus Georgia case in 1832. This case showed that native nations had their own rights and tried to protect them from state government interference. Even though they won, the federal authorities often ignored the ruling, showing the limits of using the law. Another way was through negotiation and diplomacy. Many native leaders tried to work within the political system, negotiating treaties to secure their rights and land. They said that expanding the U.S. was a part of the special national destiny called Manifest Destiny. This idea was that the Americans were meant to spread across the continent, bringing what they saw as freedom and progress to everyone. They thought removing Native Americans was necessary for the nation's growth and spreading American values. But opponents of Indian removal used the same ideas of liberty and freedom to argue for Native American rights. They believed in true freedom couldn't exist if whole communities were being oppressed, and that the removal policy went against the core principles of the U.S. activists, including some abolitionists and religious groups, stressed that Native Americans deserve the same rights and freedoms as everyone else. They agreed that treaty rights, prior land agreements, and coexistence were being ignored by an unfair policy aimed at erasing indigenous presence and sovereignty. Andrew Jackson's fight with the Bank of the U.S. is a key moment in American history that shows how presidential power grew. Jackson, the seventh president from 1829 to 1832, didn't trust the bank, thinking it favored rich people over the common folks. Because of this belief, he took strong actions against the bank, changing how power was balanced between the presidency and the banking system. One big way Jackson increased presidential power was by using the veto in 1832. When the bank's charter needed to be renewed, Jackson vetoed the bill even though Congress supported it. This was a big deal at the time because it showed he was ready to challenge Congress and believed the president could act in the public's best interest. And that is the democracy in America from 1814 to 1840.